The AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, the far-right party, has really been one of the main protagonists in this election campaign. But you mentioned an 8-week election campaign, Tom. This is something that really began on November the 5th, which would really be a fateful day both for Germany and for Europe, both the day that Donald Trump was elected president of the United States and the day that Olaf Scholz's coalition collapsed, in basically paving the way for this election. And if you think about the timeline here, Tom, November the 5th to the vote today, and then maybe 1, 2, potentially 3 months of coalition building to build a government, this really highlights part of the issue that Germany has been grappling with over the last few years, which is basically not being able to get things done and not being able to get things done quickly. Heading into the polls this weekend, we've looked at basically something that has not changed since that November the 5th, where you have the CDU leading, potentially getting 30% of the vote. You look at that as sort of historic averages, that'll still be quite a bit lower than what we have seen in terms of a leading party in Germany since the basically turn of this century. Merkel was always doing above 30%. The lowest she ever got was about 32%, but much better than Olaf Scholz, who had the sort of lowest sort of governing majority with about 25% of the vote. So what really Friedrich Merz is hoping to do here is consolidate some of that vote, consolidate some of that power, and be able to sort of lead a strong coalition at a moment when, frankly, Tom, not just Germany, but all of Europe needs to move a lot faster.
Yeah, and the polling, of course, suggests that there is very little chance of an absolute majority, as you highlight for us, Ollie. Talk us through the potential coalition options that could come through in the weeks and months ahead.
Yeah, we should say, Tom, that, coalitions are a very sort of normal part of the German political process. There's only been one absolute majority since the end of the Second World War. So generally speaking, you have these parties working together on a number of different issues and for long periods of times at certain points in times. I mean, the CDU right now is likely potentially, in terms of the arithmetic, could go into coalition with the SPD. We should say that the SPD, Olaf Scholz's party, is expected to get its lowest vote ever in the history of the party. That will likely pave the way for Olaf Scholz to step down, which will make it easier for these two parties to work together, because there has been a very sort of acrimonious political campaign coming into this election. We should also say that there is the possibility that the Greens could just get enough in order to work with the CDU. I've spoken to senior CDU lawmakers who say that despite the fact that they probably have more in common with the SPD, actually on an interpersonal level, they actually get along better with the Green Party, so that could be an option. But Tom, really the worst case scenario, and something we really need to pay close attention to on Sunday, is not really the parties that get the most votes, but the parties that get the least votes, because any party that gets below the 5% threshold of the total vote, they get knocked out of the Bundestag, and then you only need to form a majority with what's left. That completely fundamentally rewrites the arithmetic in terms of what will be possible for coalitions. But Tom, at the end of the day, probably the worst case scenario for the markets is that you see some of that support for the CDU dwindle, you see sort of support for those smaller parties raise, and you have a really super fractured party system going into this weekend, which would make those coalition talks much more difficult. Again, at a time, Tom, we need to really highlight 2 years of consecutive contraction in Germany, potentially a third coming, where things really just need to get done.